Coming off the worst season in franchise history, the Pistons desperately need to overhaul their roster. So let's talk trades.
Passing lane, sky's a jam. Dynamite dunk and the crowd loves
it. Welcome back to Pistons Intellect. I'm your host, Jack Kelly. You can follow me on Twitter at Jack_Kelly_313. And if you're feeling so kind, as always, please hit that subscribe button. And you can also support us over on Instagram at Pistons_Intellect. Now, for today's show, I've seen a few trades going around on Pistons socials this week, in the past few days, on Twitter, some on Instagram, even seen some in the comments on YouTube. So I picked here 3 trades I've seen generate a lot of kind of conversation, or 2 that have generated a fair bit of conversation, and one that I saw, which I wanted to bring up as a discussion about another player. So without further ado, we're just going to get straight into it. The first trade I kind of saw tossed around on Twitter was this one from Bleacher Report. Now, look, Bleacher Report often do a lot of these trades. None of them are really, most of the time, anything reported. They're often just discussion pieces. But I think even though might not be a report or something really tied to this, I think it's still interesting to discuss and at least have the conversation. So the first trade I wanted to discuss is this one centered around Dejounte Murray. So as we all know, earlier in the week, or Sunday, I should say, the Pistons, who had the worst record in the league, fell to number 5 in the draft. And the Atlanta Hawks, who actually played in the play-in tournament, somehow jumped all the way up to get the first overall selection in the draft lottery. So off the back of that, Bleacher Report posted this trade, or proposed this trade. The Pistons, in this instance, send out Jaden Ivey, Asar Thompson, and the number 5 overall pick for Dejounte Murray and the first overall pick. Now, before I get to my decision, I guess, thoughts on this trade, I just wanted to highlight kind of the contract situation of these players. Now, Dejounte Murray signed an extension last summer with the Hawks, which was a 4-year extension worth around, I'm just looking at it here, quick maths, around $110 million. So he still has next season $25 million, then the following season $28 million, following season $30 million. Then in the final year, in the 27-28 season, he has a player option of around $32 million. So a lot of money there, which in the Pistons case is kind of good because he's locked up. And that's something with when we look at all these trade candidates, it's in the Pistons case, even if they're going to get free agents, like they're going to have to either overpay free agents or you want to trade for players that are locked down on a contract. And I know, of course, players can still ask out, but you're still going to try go for the guy that has those 3-4 years locked in when you're making a trade for a guy like Dejounte Murray. Now, would I do this trade? What are my thoughts? It's tough. Part of me thinks, honestly, both Atlanta and the Pistons say no in this trade. And I think for the Hawks, I think depending on what direction they want to go, if they're trading Murray and the first overall pick, I would think it's because they're keeping Trae Young and they're trying to build around him. And if they're keeping Trae Young and they're trying to build around him, it seems kind of weird to move Murray and that pick for 2 unproven players and the number 5 pick in one of the worst projected drafts in over a decade. So I feel like the Hawks would say no here because Jaden Ivey still very much up in the air what he's going to be. And Asar Thompson, for as much as Pistons fans love him, if you talk to people outside the fan base, a lot of people look at him as, an incredibly enticing player with a huge kind of array of athletic tools and a really good kind of work ethic and personality. And that's the same for Jaden. But I think Asar When you talk to other fans, there's something about those Thompson twins and just their attitude and their obsession with basketball. So I think that counts for something. But I think a lot of fans just look at the fact he can't shoot. His ball handling needs improvement. So, and look, great defender, can rebound the ball, but it's a tough piece to fit on the wing because, a lot of teams have those rim running bigs. Not everyone has Jokic and Embiid. So, and that's the issue the Pistons have had, trying to play Durant and Asar together. Like we talk about Cade and Ivy maybe not being the best fit, but if you want to talk about bad fits, Asar and Jalen Durant are one of the worst fits that you can have on the offensive end of the court. So I just think like the Hawks probably say no for those reasons. And then the Pistons, maybe they say yes. The only reason I say they say no is because I feel like they are still heavily invested in Asar Thompson. Now, maybe that changes. James Edwards has written in his article, he thinks Asar is close to untouchable. That doesn't mean he's untouchable. But that could all change with the new president of basketball operations. But until that's announced, it's hard to we can only look through the lens of what we currently have right now. And I feel like Asar is still valued very high. And yeah. Maybe they say yes. After just talking this out aloud, sometimes when you think of things in your head, it's a bit different when you say it out loud. Maybe the Pistons say yes. I still think they say no. Now, as for what I would do, this is really tough. This is really tough. When I look at Dejounte Murray, last season, he averaged 22 points. 22 points, basically 23 points, 5 rebounds, 6 assists, 46% from the field, 36 from downtown. And if you go and look deeper into the numbers, because I wanted to just make sure, because when you think about Dejounte and Cade, Dejounte could be off ball and he's going to get spot up looks. And the same goes for Cade, but you want to make sure Dejounte can shoot. And he was shooting catch and shoots last year, unguarded around 40% from 3. And then I think guarded, he was like 36%, which is a really good number for catch and shoot looks. So kind of has it all offensively. He can clearly take the ball handling pressure off Cade. You can stagger those guys. God forbid Monty actually does stagger, but you can stagger them really nicely and always have one of them on the floor. The only thing that gives me pause is for some reason Dejounte and Trey just didn't really flow very well offensively and didn't seem to click like you would think. And their coach was Quinn Snyder, who I would, when Dwayne Casey stepped down, that was the coach I wanted. Now, obviously, the Hawks picked up Snyder, I should say, before the Pistons even had a chance to get him, I think, from memory. But, it was like to have him as your coach who with Utah ran one of the best offenses year in, year out. And then for him not to be able to figure it out with Dejounte and Trey, maybe Dejounte isn't best suited playing off someone like Cade. Maybe that wouldn't be the best for Cade either. Like to a much lesser extent, kind of what's made me change my tune a little on the Ivy and Cade backcourt is not so much Ivy's, if you want to call it lack of progression as a sophomore. It's more so just them not be able to produce consistent basketball or winning basketball together at all. Cade and Ivy feels like they just don't play well together. Ivy has his best games when Cade's not there, and you might be able to argue the same for Cade. I think Cade's just going to play well no matter what most of the time, but Jaden definitely played better without Cade. So, it just that two kind of ball dominant guard backcourt does give me pause. And then the other thing is Dejounte dropped off quite a bit. Like I think anyone who says Dejounte is a good defender now, it's kind of a reputation he had with the Spurs. I feel like as his offensive game's gotten better, it's kind of a natural thing. Like the defense has dropped off a little bit. So when we talk about Cade and surrounding him with the right pieces, I think Dejounte would be good. But, you kind of want someone in the backcourt with Cade who can defend the point of attack. And, that could be a wing. Don't get me wrong. But I think you might need that point of attack defender to take the opposing team's guard, to take a Steph Curry, to take a Damian Lillard, to take insert one of the amazing guards in today's NBA. So, because you don't want Cade doing that the whole time. So is that Dejounte Murray, or do you want Cade doing that? Does he have to step more defensively? There's just the questions I have. Pistons fans might kill me for this, but this is a really tough one. I think I lean towards no, but it's very close, and I'll cop any grief anyone gives me, but I still think you're giving away too much untapped potential for a good player in Dejounte Murray. But when you're giving up those 3 young assets, including number 5 pick, I know you get the number 1 pick back, but I think Asar, I'm not sure. I don't think I can give all that up for Dejounte Murray. And then you're left with pretty much, say it's Alex Sarr or say it's Ron Holland, I don't know, and Dejounte Murray, and Jalen Duren. I'm not sure how that makes me feel. So I'm going to just say no, but I'm glad I talked this one out, and I'd love to hear your thoughts below in the comments, because I think on the surface I said no, but then I've kind of talked it out and I can see both sides. But ultimately, I think if you took Asar out and changed that to Jalen Duren, I don't know. Maybe I say yes. I'm not sure. But that's where I'm on that one. I think it's a really good trade to discuss, and I probably just say no. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Next trade. This one was also in the same piece from Bleacher Report, and it's centered around, once again, a trade with the Hawks. And this was kind of a 3-team trade. And in this trade, it featured the Portland Trailblazers, the Atlanta Hawks, and the Pistons. And when I look at this, the Pistons in this trade are kind of a facilitator to take on money. So in this trade, the Hawks receive Matisse Thybulle, pick 7, pick 14. Portland get the number 1 pick from Atlanta and a 2027 second-round pick from the Pistons, which is via a pick swap from Brooklyn or Dallas. And the Pistons get Clint Capela. Now, not the most exciting deal, but I wanted to bring this one up because I think it's exciting and generates the best conversation and interesting to bring up kind of trades for all-star type players like Dejounte Murray. And as you can see, we're going to get to one around Brandon Ingram in a sec. But I think this kind of deal, if the Pistons, and this will annoy some people, but if the Pistons aren't able to get said fringe all-star type talent, or, imagine if they could actually get a fringe All-NBA type talent that we don't know about yet, but they can't get one of those major names, which we sort of hope they do. I think it's imperative, no matter what, they build out this roster with really good veterans, because something I have been thinking about, and I don't know if I've spoken about it on here, but I might have, but this team, I think what we saw last year was the plan was roll the young guys out. In theory, they added shooting with Harris and Morris, and started Boyan, but it didn't really work. But the idea, it felt like, was roll out the young guys, bank on their progression in year 2 or year 3, and surround them with some spacing and see what they can do. Now, obviously, that was flawed, as we found out. They relied way too much on their young guys. And I think one of the issues there is, I think maybe with someone like Jalen Duren, who I've been a little bit harsh on, but his lack of defensive progression, and kind of feels like he took a little bit of a step back defensively, I feel like was due to the fact the Pistons just had no other option at center. If they had a really decent, adequate backup center, I can bet you now that Jalen Duren's minutes, he would have been fighting for those minutes, and he would have had to earn minutes more. And the same can be said for, even if you want to say Jaden Ivey. If the Pistons actually had Quentin Grimes all season and he was healthy, ready to go, maybe Ivey in the second half of the season has more competition. And I know Monty brought him off the bench, but you could say it I just think basically overall the Pistons need more veterans and they need more competition for minutes, because it feels like sometimes younger guys were gifted minutes, and that was fine in the Dwayne Casey era. But it feels like now, maybe last season, these young guys maybe just got too many minutes early on. Like Marcus Sasser, I was high on him. I know he's an older rookie, but, if the Pistons had have had maybe a Corey Joseph or a better backup point guard who was healthy, maybe that helps the development. But and maybe I've done a bit of a 180 on that because I was harsh on Monty about the benching of Ivy, but that was more because he was playing Killian over Ivy, which I don't get. If Killian at the start of the season was Quentin Grimes, probably wouldn't have been as happy about it, but I get it. I've said that numerous times, so I'm going to stop. But for this trade, I think the reason I don't mind it is because Clint Capela is still a really decent to good center in the NBA, especially on a team like Detroit. Last season, he averaged 12 points, 11 boards, highly efficient, 58% from the field. That's actually kind of low for him. And then blocks, he still averaged 1.5 blocks last season. He'd be the best rim protector on the Pistons by a mile. And, he'd be a lob threat for Cade. I mean, I know he's lost a bit of, no, I don't want to say he's lost a step, but he's not the same as he was the James Harden Rockets, Clint Capela, but he turns 30 tomorrow, actually. And he's still got a few years left. He's on an expiring $20 million contract. So I don't mind it. I think he gives JD everything he can handle in terms of minutes. And if you start Capela and then JD comes in after him, or if you want to keep starting Jalen Duren, that's fine by me. But if he doesn't have it that night, you play Clint Capela those 28 minutes and Duren, he rides the bench. Or if JD has it going, Capela, takes a step back. So not really too aware of Clint Capela and his personality and what he's like in the locker room. But, I can't imagine that'd be too much of an issue. But I think it's something that's manageable for sure. So that's kind of my thought on that. Whether the other teams do it, I'm not too sure. I think for the Hawks in this instance, they get back more first-round picks, and maybe that helps them facilitate a bigger trade for Murray or Trey. But for the Pistons, I kind of don't mind it. Like, if Clint Capela is on the Pistons next season, I think he works pretty well and would help Jalen Duren. So let me know your thoughts on that one. The next trade I want to get to, as you can see, is the second item on the list, is this trade with this trade here with the New Orleans Pelicans. Now, this one here, going to have some fun chatting through this one. Detroit send out Evan Fournier, Isaiah Stewart, Quentin Grimes, and a 2027 first-round pick for Brandon Ingram. Now, contracts-wise, Brandon Ingram, he will be going into the last year of his deal on $36 million. So the Pistons make this trade. They have pretty much up until February next year, or they have a few months to convince Ingram to sign an extension. Or you would hope upon making the trade, Ingram signs an extension, because you don't even want to deal with that during the season. Because I still feel like if the Pistons got Ingram and Cade, I don't know, I think they could make a push up the standings, but, there's always a chance they start bad just due to chemistry issues, and, they might have a new coach, and then you're dealing with Ingram potentially leaving, then you have to trade him at the trade deadline. That would be a disaster. So ideally, you have a signature from Ingram or an agreement after making this trade. But this is the thing. If I'm Brandon Ingram, and this is what makes this trade really tough, because when I just look at the assets involved, you kind of say, well, why not for the Pistons? I don't like giving up that first rounder. But, you'd be kind of keeping that pick to hope you get someone like Brandon Ingram. So, I don't know. Like Isaiah Stewart, I love Stu. He's my favorite player. You can see his jersey up there behind me. But, I'd be willing to move on from him for an all-star. Quentin Grimes, who I'm going to touch on in a moment. I'd be happy to move him. And I think Grimes and Stewart actually really help what the Pelicans are doing. I think you saw with Valanciunas, whilst he's a really solid post player and get buckets. He just doesn't have the versatility defensively. And I think Isaiah Stewart has all of that. And with Stu's 3-point shot, especially when he's playing at the 5, he's a genuine spacer. He can pick and pop. I think that helps give space for Zion. Evan Fournier is in this deal just there for his expiring money. So I think the Pelicans can probably get better offers, no doubt. But if this offer was sent to the Pistons, if you can get some form of promise from Ingram he'll sign an extension, I think you do it. Even though I have questions with Ingram's fit with Cade, I just think it makes sense. Even if you sign Ingram and then you can trade him. Like, I know he's got health issues, but if him and Cade don't work, at least you can hopefully get that extension and then you trade him. Like, and you get more assets because, yeah, I think you just get a guy like that and see if it works. Like, I think they could make it work. I think you'd have to adjust the roster around them because I'm not sure. Brandon Ingram is kind of similar to Cade when it comes to scoring. He likes to do a lot of damage in the mid-range. His catch and shoot numbers from 3 were actually pretty good. He just doesn't take a lot of them. And maybe he would adjust to that playing alongside Cade. And Cade would certainly have to make some adjustment as well. But yeah, my only thing would be like Ingram's not a guy that gets to the rim a lot, and neither's Cade. So, and if I just look at Brandon Ingram, how many free throws does he take a game? Yeah, so he averages around 5 free throws a game for his career. He was down on one of his lower averages this season. He averaged 4.5 free throws a game. So, but he hovers around that 5 mark, which is probably similar to what Cade's going to be. So, not huge free throw guys, but he's a scorer. So he only averaged 20 points this season, but he's a guy who's averaged consistently around 22 to 24 with the Pelicans. So, look, I think he gives you size on the wing. Him and Asar and Duran, I'm not sure about that all around Cade. Maybe. I still think even if you get Ingram, you still need to address that center position because I just think I think no matter what, honestly, the Asar Duran thing, if the Pistons are really trying to win next season, that's just going to be super interesting to watch because I really struggle to see how those two play a lot of minutes together, especially alongside Cade. But, for this trade, that's something you can work out after. I think I say yes to this for the Pistons. So very keen to hear your guys' thoughts in the comments below. I know Ingram's been injured. I know he's due for an extension. And maybe that would scare people off because then they'll say, well, Jack, what if you sign him to this huge extension? He gets an injury. Then him and Cade don't work. Then he gets injury. How are you going to move that? I get that's scary. I do. This isn't, it's so tough. This is why this offseason is so tough because ultimately I feel like I know the core 4 don't work together, all 4 on the court, but I still feel like we didn't get a fair chance to look at it last season because it's like, was Monty's coaching right? The roster around them sucked. So it's tough. I feel like if the Pistons make a big trade this summer, there's going to be some that love it, some that hate it, and there's going to be a heap of us like this trade here who don't know how to feel because it's been so confusing the past 2 seasons watching this young talent and trying to figure out, are they in the right situation? Are they developing right? They missed all this time with Cade. It's a tricky spot for us to be in as a fan base. So if you disagree with me on this trade and my thoughts, I don't blame you at all. I won't even argue with you because it's like the Dejounte one. It's really close for me. And not because of the assets directly involved with this, more so because Brandon Ingram's history with injury and him being due a huge contract. So that's my thoughts on that. I think you maybe just do it. But let me know below your thoughts. Now, before we finish off the show today, I posted about Quentin Grimes on Twitter, and it's because the Pistons, they've been kind of doing mixtapes for each of the players. It's kind of like a season wrap. And Quentin Grimes popped up today on my timeline. And I don't think I've thought about Quentin Grimes since he was ruled out for the season. And it's weird. It just got me thinking. I posted pretty much, could he be the starting two alongside Cade? Now, I didn't actually justify in my tweet, but I was talking about just for the upcoming season. I feel like a lot of conversations been out. The Pistons need wings. They need to draft a 3-and-D wing, wings. And I get understandably, and I think we've all been looking at trades and the draft and free agency. But I kind of felt like, Pistons have Quentin Grimes. This is a guy who started season before being traded to the Pistons, 66 games alongside Jalen Brunson on a Knicks team that got to the Eastern Conference semifinals. He is an excellent defender, and I feel like we saw that with Detroit, especially on ball. The way he gets through screens, he's gritty. There was a game when the Pistons played in New York that they almost won, and he hit a few threes and was just playing amazing on-ball defense. Like, he was fighting through screens. He just hustles. He's not like a huge box score guy, but he gets some steals here and there. And if you just watch him, the tenacity he plays with on defense, like, I love it. I think Pistons fans, I know we didn't get to see him much. He only played, if I'm looking at it here, 6 games for Detroit, 20 minutes. But yeah, plays with a ferocity on defense that I love. And that goes alongside Cade really well. And I think why Pistons fans, I got a lot of comments saying, no, he can't shoot. He was horrible, blah, blah, blah. And I get it. It's because he only played 6 games and he could not hit a 3 to save his life. The only game he actually hit any was that Knicks game. I think he hit 3 or 4. But yeah, look, he played 6 games. Yeah, I think he was injured before he got to Detroit, played 6 games, and then was ruled out for the season. So we barely saw anything. But if you look at the numbers, he's historically a great catch and shoot look from 3. So I'm not too worried about that. I think Grimes' limitations offensively, he can't do a lot from what I've seen off the dribble. It's pretty much shoot the 3 or pump fake, drive to the rim if you can get your man. Bit of cutting. But I think if you just want to put shooting and defense in the backcourt around Cade, Pistons kind of have a guy here. And I got confused thinking he was a free agent this offseason, but the Pistons don't have to extend him this summer. He's extension eligible, but next year I think he's only on like $2 million. Yeah, $2.5 million for next season. So yeah, just got me thinking. I honestly forgot he was on the roster. And I was really excited when the Pistons got him because he's not the biggest. He's only 6'5", but, you could call him a 3-and-D wing. I think he can play up at the 3 when you go smaller. Definitely a 2 guard. But he kind of checks the boxes alongside Cade, especially if you were to – I know he was just in that Brandon Ingram trade, but say the Pistons keep Grimes and put someone else in there. A lineup of, Cade, Quentin Grimes, Brandon Ingram, Asar maybe at the 4, and then if you could find a spacing center, that makes a lot of sense to me. And Grimes is proven, he's proven that he can play high-level basketball. Now, I know you might want to say, he's not a star and he's not going to give you 20, but when you've got Ingram at the 3, Cade at the 1, I don't think you need a guy that's going to give you 20 to 25. You might be able to find a scorer off the bench who can come in and help give you those 15 points a night in the backcourt. There's plenty of those microwave scorers around the league. So I kind of think he fits quite nicely, especially if the Pistons upgrade their scoring talent on the wing. I think Grimes could be a starting 2 next season. As long as he can stay healthy, I believe in the stroke. So, and the defense is real. So what are your thoughts on Quentin Grimes? I feel like we haven't spoken about him a lot. We didn't see much of him, so I understand that. But yeah, I think he kind of, when you think of the archetype, fits really nicely alongside Cade. But that's all for today, guys. Yeah, I don't think I have any other thoughts. But yeah, let me know your thoughts on today's show. Unless there's any breaking news, I'll be back as usual for our regular show going forward on Tuesday. So as always, go Pistons.